Critical Thinking Rule 19, correlations may have alternate explanations. This rule is about looking at correlations and realizing that there could be a causal relation between the two factors to explain the correlation, but there can also be other types of explanations rather than causal between the two factors. So we're going to go through some of the possibilities. One alternate explanation for a correlation between X and Y, other than that X causes Y, is that there's just a coincidental correlation between them. Example, both the universe and consumer prices are inflating. So the universe is expanding. That's actually a different concept from cosmic inflation. Cosmic inflation only occurred at the very beginning of the universe around the time of the Big Bang. But if you assume that inflating here can be used to also refer to the general expansion of the universe that has continued, then you can compare this to the fact that in the United States and with many other currencies, there's a rate of inflation or expansion of the money supply every year. So you could say, oh, there's a correlation between the expansion of the universe and the expansion of the money supply. However, this is just a coincidental correlation. We don't even have to look too deeply to realize one has nothing to do with the other. And one of the clues for this is that they don't seem to be any, there doesn't seem to be any relation between them, causally speaking. So the money supply is determined by the actions of individual governments and banks that create money supply by loaning money as credit, etc. So it's not related at all causally to the fundamental features of space-time. There can be other coincidental correlations where you think there's an actual causal relation, but it just turns out to be a coincidence. There's also another possible explanation other than causation, which is a reverse direction of causation. If you think that X causes Y to explain the correlation, maybe it's that Y causes X instead. Here's a possible example. If you say people with a positive mental attitude are more likely to be wealthy, and if you use that correlation to conclude that having a positive mental attitude causes you to be wealthy, another possibility you don't want to overlook is that being wealthy is what causes you to have a positive mental attitude, perhaps because life is good and easy or what have you. So always consider as well the possibility that there is a causal relationship between X and Y, but the causal arrow points in the other direction. A third type of alternate explanation is that there's a third factor causing the correlation between X and Y. So it's not that X causes Y or that Y causes X, but there's a third factor, Z, that's causing the observed correlation between X and Y. Example, students who sit in front of the class tend to get higher grades. You might look at this correlation and assume that sitting in front of the class causes you to get a higher grade. But what if there's a third factor that's causing both of these? For example, if a student is highly motivated to do well or interested in the material, that's the third factor, Z, then that might cause them to both sit in front of the class and to work harder to get higher grades. A fourth type of alternate explanation is many types of causal complexity. In other words, even if there is a causal relationship that explains the correlation between X and Y, it's not just a coincidence. It could involve a multitude of causes or a multitude of causal directions. Here's one possible example. Since the 1950s, violence on television has increased and so has violent crime. This is a complex topic to study causally. It's possible it's a coincidental correlation. Another possibility is that there's a feedback loop. So as violence increased on television or other media, that increased violent crime. As society became more violent, that increased consumer demand and producer supply of violence on television or other media. I'm not saying this is actually what happened, by the way, but it just shows you the possibilities for causal complexity that could exist behind what seems like a simple correlation. Next up, Rule 20, work towards the most likely explanation.